To examine the authenticity of the Prophet of Islam, we must examine the Quran and its claim to being a miracle. But before we can determine whether the Quran is truly a miracle or not, we must first establish the nature of this book. What is its subject? What is its purpose? Just as with examining and comparing any other book, we must first know the subject and relevant field, then measure it against related books, indicators, and standards of that field. This approach is also necessary for the Quran. When we ask the Quran directly, without regard to the descriptions of supporters and opponents, how it describes itself, we find that this book has paid considerable attention to this subject. Over 100 verses deal directly with describing the Quran, and hundreds of other verses provide indirect and related descriptions of it. When we examine these verses, we see that two concepts, guidance and mercy, have the highest frequency. The Quran has repeatedly presented itself as a guide and mercy. Throughout this book, the concept of guidance and the word families related to it have perhaps been addressed more than any other concept. Also, hundreds of times it has spoken about mercy, kindness, and divine compassion. Notice that the chapters of the Quran begin with Bismillah ir-Rahman ir-Rahim, in the name of Allah, the entirely merciful, the especially merciful. That is, the only attribute mentioned at the beginning of chapters for the God that the Quran introduces is His mercy, and that in two forms, Rahman and Rahim, without other attributes being presented alongside it. Mercy is the only attribute that the Quran says God has obligated upon Himself and has extended over all existence. Therefore, if we want to express the description that the Quran provides of itself in the shortest sentence, we must say that the Quran is a letter of mercy from God for the guidance of mankind. Now, to examine the miraculous nature of this book, we must examine this claim. That is, to see whether the Quran is truly unsurpassed in guidance and mercy, and whether anything superior to it can be found. If you remember in previous discussions, the fundamental reason for paying attention to the subject of prophethood was this question: has God, in addition to the general message He gave to all beings, spoken with mankind in a special way and sent a distinctive message for them? The Quran tells us that this special message is God's guidance and mercy. In addition to God leading beings to their general purposes, He has established a special purpose for mankind that, out of mercy, He wants to lead mankind to through the Quran. Now, we must examine whether the Quran has truly answered that important question about where humanity's destination and human perfection lies, and how one can reach this destination or not, and whether it has provided the best and unique answer or just one similar to other existing answers.